Biophoton activity, which is the emission of light due to cellular actions, is currently understood to be a byproduct of metabolic processes. It is true there is biophoton light that is emitted as a byproduct, but the main intensity and occurrence of biophotons take place inside the cell and is not the byproduct, but the initiations, the source or start of cellular sequences. The cell, it can be said, is powered by light, a light generated most effectively in the mitochondria as it is a conductor of electricity. But overall, the whole cell is lighting up in a circuit, like a motherboard. Kleiber's law discovered a relationship between the mass of an organism and its energy efficiency related to the metabolic processes. A larger animal, despite having a greater demand of metabolism, is more energy efficient than a small animal. The common comparison you'll see is between a mouse and an elephant. The elephant's use of energy is not equivalent to its mass, but in terms of a graph, the slope rises steadily. Without the generation of luminous energy, the Kleiber law makes little sense. However, with the understanding of biophotons, the total number of cells and the surface area means that more energy, more light can be generated and absorbed. This leads to another gap in understanding, which is that light is captured and absorbed for energy. Every cell in the body has to be able to generate, sustain, and absorb its own energy. That is how an organism can exist. The hardware, the cellular organelles, proteins, fats, sugars, the actual component parts of a cell must be obtained through the accruement of resources, or eating, in whatever form that may take. The parts must be harvested, digested, and then rebuilt to form cells once a cell has burnt itself out. The source of light absorption in the cell of every organism is melanin. Melanin particles exist primarily in the paranuclear space of the nucleus of the cell, which surrounds the DNA. This is true for cells deep within the body, such as the heart, the liver, brain, and so on. Because where there is light generation with biophotons, there must be a molecule adjacent which will capture and use that light to continue to support the very existence and ability to produce light in the first place. It feeds into itself. This melanin molecule, which has confounded most of science because it does not behave nor respond to anything ever studied before, and that misunderstanding has played a role in its classification of simply as a UV blocker. However, were it to block UV, the more sensible method would be to reflect light. However, melanin absorbs light instead, and not just the UV, but the entire range of electromagnetism that the sun, for example, emits. Some of the uses of melanin in nature. Melanin fights and traps viruses, parasites, and other infectious agents. It isolates toxins, removes waste, binds to metal ions, making it a chelating agent that bioremediates heavy metals. Melanin can also bind to nearly any other molecule, mineral, or metal, which is how the variety of pigments in nature exists. The fur of a tiger, the feathers of a bird, the hair of a person. The concentration of melanin and the particles it has determines the way light absorbs and reflects. Paint of nature, which an animal uses to customize itself with. Melanin is antioxidant, plays a key role in the immune system, and issues of melanin also lead to damage in the body too, most notably tumors and cancers, but also degenerative eye, brain, digestive, heart, and nearly every other disease on the planet. This is due to their fundamental role in capturing light and producing energy, on top of the other reasons listed. Fascinatingly, melanin has all of these same roles no matter where it is in nature. The molecule is the same. How it is used, of course, may vary. Fungus in particular may use it for chelating metal and infecting other species, while insects, birds, and bats use it to help their flight. Regardless, melanin functions this way inside an organism or outside an organism. It could be said that these are inherent properties of melanin itself, and those properties are how life and nature evolved around to use and arrange itself with. The dark matter is melanin. They are the same molecule. On the scale of the solar system, stars are dark matter on the inside, a core of melanin. So both a cell and a star operate fundamentally the same, or at least it can be said they are parallel. I think that the Kleiber law could apply to stars along the same slope graph. The formula works because the energy, mass, metabolism, light, and dark matter are the same that is found in organic life. The difference in scope is literally astronomical, but a larger star burns more efficiently in comparison to its mass, at a rising degree than comparatively to a smaller star and still more than an animal. The rate of decay depends how fast it burns. An animal dies roughly around 1 billion heartbeats. Smaller animals with faster heartbeats have shorter lifespans than a larger animal with a slower lifestyle. Were there an animal the size of an elephant, living with the same speed as a mouse, it would have an exceedingly short life. This is why larger stars don't live as long as small stars despite the more efficient energy use. It's because it's so efficient that it's burning so much quicker. I am calling this chain of knowledge dark matter biology because you have roughly 30 trillion cells. Inside you is a galaxy of cellular stars, the constellations of which form to combine the organs. There are also 100 trillion non-human microbial cells living in and on the body. There's entire worlds, solar systems, and dark matter. This makes light the most significant influence because the body is perfect, it is flawless. All of nature is flawless. Everything works exactly as intended. Because the cell is without error, it will execute orders precisely with the intention given to them. These orders are recorded in an instruction manual, DNA. There is no junk DNA, and neither is life predetermined by DNA. The energy that is channeled from melanin speaks in a language of binary to the DNA, which encodes information in its database through binary language. The information contained in light and electricity is fed through the conductivity of DNA, whose form is a liquid crystal, perfect for this communication, and DNA emits biophotons back to the rest of the cell. The instructions are received by the light and given to the rest of the cell. This is why the cell exists in a pool of cytoplasm. It's a medium which allows for this flow of energy. An instruction is given to the mitochondria by a decoded DNA message, and the mitochondria conducts the electrical state, using electrons obtained from the dark matter. You might imagine the mitochondria like a 3D printer. Receives a code from DNA, plugged into its outlet for energy, and then crafting or carrying out whatever the orders are. This is why I call mitochondria the antimony of the cell, because in alchemical terms, the antimony is the wolf of metals. It's the devourer of metals that can transform any other metal. What that represents is free-spiritedness, the animal within. The reason why the wolf represents this goes back to shamanic traditions that had to do with the taming of the wolf and possessed or trance states. But in truth, the animal is anything. A tiger to some cultures, a lion to others, a jaguar, an eagle. It is the ability to disentangle from the light that is conditioned, the confines of injunctions, the ties that bind people. To understand this, we are actually going to use the stallion. If you are at all familiar with horse training, there are two ways a rider can establish a relationship with the horse. They can break the horse, or they can earn its trust. The popular and easy way is to break the horse. This is what they call breaking its spirit, or taming it. What happens is the rider will dominate the horse to the point that the horse's ability to regulate, which is controlling its nervous system, or the electricity in the body, is now under the reins of the rider. This is literal on the mitochondrial level before it's physical with leather straps, because the conduction of energy in the cell is via the mitochondria, but that conduction is determined by the decoded light it receives from the DNA and dark matter or melanin, the message contained within that. You might relate to it more in the movies where the kids are playing and the abusive parent comes home and suddenly everyone freezes. There is a regulation, the control of energy, which gets conditioned to react and respond. A threatening sound elicits a learned behavioral response, and the fear, anxiety, trauma that is generated as light. It's why someone can be trained to sweat in public speaking through bad experiences, or stutter under pressure, or have nervous responses to various situations which have been entangled into their mitochondria. The mitochondria is a conductor. It allows for energy to enter through its circuit, and that energy can take the form of whatever message is encoded into it. If you fear heights, you will respond to heights in a physiological way, because physiology, psychology, and all the ologies of the body requires light to begin to happen. If your light is tied down to abuse, trauma, pain, conditioning, laws, rules, fears, so on and so forth, the mitochondria will always be running instructions genetically encoded in the DNA to produce the effects and states that have been passed down or learned. When we scale it up on simple terms, this is called the fight or flight response. The sympathetic nervous system, which is the distribution of energy to innervate or flow electricity to the areas of the body that can deal with the situation, such as the muscles and eyes, to either escape or deal with the danger. So when we go back to the horse taming and breaking in spirit, that's what that means. The horse has been traumatized into submission. The rider now controls its mitochondria. There is a huge human exceptionalism problem, which believes that the human creature is somehow in a hierarchy above animals and other life, on some isolated plane of existence in which none of the rest of nature applies in the same way. Yet, as we just explored, all is ran on the same circuit of energy with dark matter and light, just like a star. However, the networks of human life are indeed complex. There are many rules, social relations, notoriety, laws, guilt, injunctions, being raised in certain ways, the whole panoply of civilization. All that puts reins over the mitochondria in some way. And because the body works precise and unceasingly perfect, the light of those entanglements are the tamers, the fears and guilt. Sometimes it is people, sometimes just society, pressure, bills, everything. It's all real to the mitochondria and therefore to you. The other option to ride a horse is to earn its respect. Rather than dominate it into submission, earn its trust, its respect. Prove you are worthy to ride it. Because ultimately the reason the rider that wants to break the spirit of the horse chooses to do it that way is because the tamer himself has incomplete mitochondria. The light of his life is not his own, and so this requires consumption. Why a parent might beat their kid, or even on a smaller scale, why someone might bother you when you're trying to relax. They don't get to have quiet moments, so they steal someone else's. But when you no longer need regulation from others, you can help cultivate that in the horse, or a kid, or a pet, or the land, anything. When both horse and rider are complete individuals on the mitochondrial level, that's when their bond can actually be stronger than when one has beaten the other into servitude. I'll end the horse analogy with this quote. "Never was a horse that couldn't be rode, never was a rider that couldn't be throwed." No one is ever the best. Anyone can be reined in and conquered, just as anyone can be thrown off, disentangled from. We move on from the stallion and into the snake, specifically the ouroboros. The symbol has become associated with eternity, cycles of birth, death, and rebirth, duality, infinity, interconnectedness. A symbol can mean anything, so I'm not going to say those are wrong. But how it should really be interpreted and used is self-consumption. If something is eating itself, it is not going to live for much longer. It is the nature of fire, viruses, anything whose fuel is also its mass. An empire can be an ouroboros. The empire thrives so long as it can conquer, but the more it conquers, the larger it grows, and the more it needs to conquer, yet the less is available to conquer. And to be fair, all those other meanings of the ouroboros is the results of the snake having eaten itself. Those are the byproducts of the end game of a zero-sum game played by one person. As you can see, this is also consistent with the Kleiber law. A bigger fire is hotter, makes things burn faster and more efficiently, but eventually burns itself out. The mitochondria is a circuit that behaves like an ouroboros. People are eating themselves alive from within. This forces them to seek light from others, to steal their shade. But if the dragon takes the tail out of its mouth, it is no longer bound to consume itself. It can produce its own light, cast its own shade. Rather than becoming a black hole which devours itself into oblivion, you can shine as a fiery star. Now, I do think what is classified as a black hole in astronomy are in fact the birth of a star, since it is the gathering of dark matter which leads to the emission of spheres of biophotons. The principle of a black hole that consumes itself, though, or an ouroboros, is pertinent because we are speaking of dark matter, that nature is made as the same stuff as space. It behaves in the same way. Understanding how these things work, think in terms of attraction, light, orbit, constellations, worlds colliding, gravitational tethers, that the same forces occur in the cell and broadly in civilization, in networks or solar systems of people. A lot of this could probably be described without the dark matter stuff which I understand is probably fringe, and that's okay. But it's extremely important because it tells us the body is perfect. Because if there's one thing you need to know about the sun, is that it rises every day. It does not fail, it does not forget how to be a sun. It is perfect, reliable, it shines. To know that the cell is made of the same dark matter as the sun and emits the same light as the sun means the body is perfect. The light and shade is what needs to be managed. The free spirit, the antimony, the wolf of metals, the mitochondria. Dark matter biology tells you you can take control of the light inside you. And in fact, no matter how fringe this sounds, every ancient shamanic culture, mystic tradition, alchemical tradition, every movie and book, the lore of tens of thousands of years of human ancestors, storytelling, whose instructions were carefully saved in the database of the DNA, all say the same thing. This is proven because they all describe phosphenes, or light visions, and they describe the same phenomena discovered separately all over the world. There is a galaxy inside, the ability to generate and see the light within, and use that to heal others, learn wisdom, experience something incredible, take control of their life. In fact, this happens every night you sleep. Your dreams are the galaxy and the worlds within all of your cells. Because you can see and experience your dreams, which means light powers them. The same light that powers the sun, only it is generated within, and it shines more intensely than the sun because the sun is far away and filtered by an atmosphere and electromagnetic field of the earth. The stars inside are mere nanometers away. They are you. Sleep temples were special places in ancient Greece and Egypt where people could be cured from ailments through their dreams because they knew this, because their religions were based on this. And the sun is always there to assist you because it is light that you can absorb when you are trapped and being eaten alive. And the sun likes a good fire starter, a wild spirit, a storm rider. Fortune favors the bold, as they say. Health issues tend to go away when you aren't worried about them, when action is taken that pulls them out of the orbit of black holes. On the furthest reaches of mysticism and meditation and shamanism is the full range of progression of self-induced seizures, an entire series of phosphenes which would give rise to much of religion and mythology. What happens is the combustion of neurons, the supernova of a star inside you, the total release of its light, energy, and knowledge contained. This is where the themes of seeing some abstract light that bestows some kind of wisdom or power or healing comes from, and equally as likely destruction. It is a balancing act. Fire burns itself out, but burn it must to light the way. Light is life, fire. It's going to burn itself out one day. Is it going to eat itself and those around, or be its own torch, self-sufficient? A dragon releasing its own tail, a star. These sound like metaphors because, as I said, this is every story and every religion and every belief system that humans have come up with. Even in the most destructive ones, because that just makes them the ouroboros, the horse tamers, the viruses, the black holes. Light not only powers the body, energizes it, light is also the pathway to activate beta endorphins, which are endogenous opioids. And because they are produced specifically for us, by us, the opioids are among the most potent pain-relieving and euphoric sensations we can experience and important for overall well-being and relaxation. Sunlight activates the beta endorphins. We are drawn to light and radiation because that is what is used to activate and initiate all processes in the body. The kind of light determines this. Love is radiation, because people can burn others, these entanglements. The gravity we push and pull on each other can equally be a source of the strongest inspiration, or it can be drained from people and be used out of them. And that is why it can be so hard for people to escape abusive relationships, because that radiation takes control of the mitochondria, whether a relationship with another person or with society and the nets it wraps around. When I said light activates beta endorphins, it's not just the sun. We're making light in every cell. Physical contact mechanically causes pressure sensors to fire, releasing bursts of biophotons. And certain areas are especially designed for light, such as hands, feet, lips, tongue, reproductive organs, to name a few. So whether it is a hug, holding hands, kissing, or more, there is actually an exchange of light, of radiation, the same that activates beta endorphins, the same that is absorbed for energy. On top of the physical activation, the arousal or excitation itself also circuits electricity throughout the body, which in contact with another person allows for that exchange and mixing of light. And so too does exercise. The movement of muscles or even the competition, the thrill, produces light, and that light activates the beta endorphin pathways. The same reason music or a good story or an intense event can motivate you or depress you. It's that production of light, the mitochondrial circuitry receiving inputs. The kind of light going into it will dictate its action and the consequence. Meditation is another source because the brain contains melanin. The light of your world, the whole galaxy, you have to find out what's really haunting you, eating you, to make the planets within align. Take back the reins, ignite the fire in your blood. Nature is not so different from the universe. It must be why all cultures have seen reflected in the heavens images of animals and themselves. Everything is a gravitational constellation because everyone is a galaxy. It's all dark matter biology. Thanks for watching.